Hey, hello. Welcome to Harden. This is a airport in the UK, and we are in Beluga land right now. This is actually a free airport that you get if you buy the great Builds airplane from the Builds Beluga from Builds. Well, that wasn't too terribly brilliant. And this is a very special hangar that Airbus has made that's actually modeled. The airport is freeware. The airplane is a great payware airplane. And hello, I'm the 757 Spy. Thank you for joining me today. One of the requests that I've had is a cold and dark video on all the little things that you do as far as getting the Beluga ready to go. It's a pretty complex airplane, and the simulation is a fairly deep dive down the Beluga rabbit hole, if you want to call it that. But it really is a pretty cool airplane. So we're going to do a complete flight today, and let's take a quick look at what it is that we're going to try and do here. The flight plan today, we're going to fly an actual Beluga route. The payload is Airbus wings, and that's actually something that Airbus, the Belugas, fly out of Harden. It's spelled Howarden, it seems like, but they pronounce it Harden. And we're taking it over to Hamburg, to Finkenwerder Airport, where there's another one of those Beluga barns there. Let's see. If you would like to see the list of flows that I use, and by flows, let's see if I can show you what those look like there. Those are the flows, and that's like a text file that I go and I create for doing first, second, third, and it's relatively complete on this one, I guess. But I'm going to put that one over on the Discord channel, and I'll make sure it's fairly obvious as to where it is that you can find my Beluga flows over there. But some tools that I'm using here, I'm using SimToolkit Pro and SimBrief. I'm using the NDP Lido charts from Aerosoft, and I'm also going to use some charts from Navigraph too, to kind of give you an idea of how different they look. I'm using Better Pushback for this, and I'm also using Active Sky. So those are some of the things that I'm using as far as add-ons. Let's see, SimToolkit Pro and SimBrief, those are both freeware. Lido charts from Aerosoft and also Navigraph, those are paywares. Better Pushback is freeware, Active Sky is payware. So settings and options for this airplane, there's a couple of things you have to do. This is, by the way, we are in X-Plane for the Beluga today, and you do need to be in experimental mode, and when you start this up, you need to start it with engines running. Don't worry, the engines won't be running, but they will actually, it sets up the airplane the way that any builds need you to set up something like the Beluga here. I did the flight plan. It's going to come down through an ACARS system, through SimBrief, which is really pretty cool. I'm using a free AnyBuilds livery, the one that you saw. I'm also using the free AnyBuilds EGNR scenery, and also there is a free EDHI scenery available over at xplane.org. An important difference with this, the V speeds for takeoff and all of that, that is not going to come through the FMS. This was before I think they called them McDoos. So the V speeds are coming from a card, and I'm going to be showing you those too. If this is one of your first times doing one of these cold and dark videos with me over here on YouTube, fly along. Harden to Hamburg. See, I told you it was spelled one way and pronounced the other way. The whole goal of this is you can stop and restart the video and even go back a little bit if I did something that you were running a little slow on, so that you can follow along step by step. And then, of course, a little bit later on, if you'd like, please feel free to join us over on Twitch for the Spy Flights. Let's see, couple of interesting things here before we get going. This is not about the right way versus the wrong way, okay? I am a live streamer. I've been a simmer for a lot of years, and this is merely what works for me. So that's one important thing. I am not a Beluga pilot. I'm a simmer, and I'm a live streamer. That's it, and this is what works for me. Please feel free to leave your questions in the comments. I will answer them here on YouTube. And finally, here is some information about today's flight. We are going from Harden to Hamburg. We're going to be departing off of runway 22. That information is wrong. That was yesterday. So runway 22 is our departure. Climbing to flight level 290, that is our route of flight. Landing on runway 23 via Ribso. Flight time for today today is about an hour and 35 minutes. Flight distance is 539, and our cruise speed is only going to be about Mach 0.68. These airplanes were really not meant to be super high and super fast types of airplanes there. So let's go ahead and hop into the cockpit and start getting this thing going. The airplane is here at the Beluga barn. That's what I call it. I think they call it the I don't even remember. It's the Beluga loading facility. And the whole point of this is, you see how the front end of it is here in the Beluga barn here? Well, we're going to go down here and we're going to actually go inside. And as we get a little bit closer here, you look and you see the big old Beluga there, and that big front thing where the number 4 is, that thing goes up in the air. And the thing is you can only do that when the wind is like virtually calm. You really can't do that when it's really windy out there. So they built these facilities so even if it's windy outside, you can raise this whole big front end and not have it, the wind break it, essentially. So there we are. Let's hop inside the cockpit and sit in the best seat in the house. Here is the cockpit of the Beluga, and the first thing that we're going to do is go to the little EFB and go to ground ops today. And we're going to turn on ground services. This is the part where you should start following along with me if you possibly can. So I'm going to put chocks in place. We don't want the airplane rolling around or anything like that. External power, we're going to pop that in as well too, and we're going to also call the fuel truck because we're going to need some gas to get over to Hamburg. Next step is we're going to go to the loader. And over here on the loader, we're going to do what they would normally do on this flight, and that is they were going to transport Airbus wings. So, and not hot and spicy wings. These are the actual wings they're putting on Airbuses. So we're going to use the Airbus wings as our cargo today. And now what we need to do is request the loader. And if you look outside, you can see, oh my goodness, now there is a very big loader out there. So let's go ahead and zoom back into the building. And you've seen this view before, but now you might even hear the sound of this loader going too. And here is our very, very big loader here. And you can see it slowly making its way over to the big Beluga. Now, as we see also on the Beluga, let's kind of go over here just a little bit. You can also see the big front end opening. You see how big that door is? This is why they created the Beluga barns here, so that they could open this big door. Something like that would catch the wind in and probably break it at the hinges and stuff. And they certainly don't want to do that. So as the, let's climb back into the best seat in the house. As this thing slowly approaches, we're going to go up and start doing the things that we need to do to make this work. First thing that, just like the real pilots are going to do, they're going to look at the gear lever handle. Say that 3 times fast. And they're going to make sure it's down. Maybe a maintenance person was in doing some work and it wasn't down there. It needs to be in the down position. You're also going to look down here, and over off to the side, you're going to look and see, are the flaps up? Are the speed brakes down? Those are some things to do. And you look down here and see, well, the parking brakes are off right now, but we have the airplane chalked. So that's an okay thing to do. And now it's time to start turning the airplane on. And to do that, we're going to go up here to the big, massive upper panel here. And the batteries are right here. We're going to turn on 3 batteries. 1, 2, 3. 3 batteries are on. Now we're going to look down here and see where it says external power. We did call for a fuel cart, so external power is available. We're going to punch that in. Here's a button here. It's the galley power, and it says that it's shed right now. That's just a light that's on. Now, there isn't a galley on this airplane. There is a bathroom. We want the bathroom to work because, if you drink too much coffee. So anyhow, let's go ahead and just pop that in right now, too, so that we can power the bathroom in case someone has to, go. Okay. After that, if it was dark outside, we could hit the dome light here, and that would turn on the dome light. We don't really need that. It's light now. But we are going to go, and we're going to look down here. And there's this little knob right down here, kind of underneath the window. Let's turn that all the way up, and you can see that's turning up the lights on the instrument panel. We're also going to go down here, and we're going to turn up these 2. These are the overhead backlights and the pedestal backlights. So we're going to turn those on. I just think it makes things easier to see in a cockpit. They call it integrated lighting, and I think that that's a cool thing to do. We're also going to turn on the integrated lighting here on the FCU, Flight Control Unit, and so we're going to pop that on as well. And then the other thing that we need to do is, since there's somebody up in the cockpit that's punching buttons and all that other good stuff, we need to go up here and we need to turn the navigation lights on. That way the lights are on the wingtips and the tail of the airplane. Just lets ground crew know that, there's somebody in the cockpit pushing buttons. Let's watch out. They might start the engines and we don't want to, get sucked into the engines or something. So cockpit integrated lighting is good. Now we're going to go and turn on the navigation systems. There's 3 of them, just like in an Airbus A320, and they're kind of spread out a little bit here. So we're going to turn on the left one, and you look to see if there is a battery light that pops in, and when it goes out, then you go over here and turn on the other one. And that just lets us know that that particular navigation system is also connected to the battery. So if we have a big old massive failure of everything, at least we know, the navigation system is connected to the battery and knows where we are when we start going down into the ground. Flight recorder, we're going to turn on ground control. That way the flight recorders are going to record what we're saying on the ground too, in case we screw up. So flight recorders there. There's also a low oxygen supply button here, and I'm going to just pop that button on too. And then the emergency exit lights. So we're going to also pop this in here too, and we're going to arm those. Back over here, one of the things we should have done is we should have opened the door. So let's go to the exits door here, and you can see the main cargo door is now open, but we're going to also open the service hatch. And the little service hatch is underneath the airplanes. Let's go back outside, and we're going to zoom back in, and we're going to take a look at this little hatch here. And there is no jetway or anything like that. You actually board a Beluga underneath the Beluga right there. There's a little hatch. And so that's how you actually get aboard a Beluga. It's right behind the main landing gear there. And so, you kind of climb up this little ladder. And we'll take a look at that. We'll look at the inside of the Beluga once we get up in the air. Okay, so by now, if you take a look, you can see that the loader is actually pretty much in place. But we actually have to tell the crew, yeah, it's okay, go ahead and load it. So now we're going to go ahead and hit the load button. And things aren't going to happen immediately as far as loading. So one of the things that has to happen is we also need to go back out. And if you look over here, there are levelers. And so these levelers are actually going down. You can, if you look closely, that leveler is actually going down, and it's going to kind of take it off the wheels there. And so once that leveler is there, and this big loading platform is steady, then all of a sudden they'll start moving the wings into the Beluga. So we've got that going on. So cargo is now loading. We're going to go down here, and we're going to use an ACARS system here. And this is actually one of the cool things about this. I think my brakes are on. I should have turned them off. Yep, there we go. All right, so this is the radio unit, but there is also an ACARS main unit. And if you have got a username with SimBrief, in the options to set this up, you can put your SimBrief username in there, or your user number, I believe. And then if that's in there and it shows up, you can go ahead and hit company root, and it will go to SimBrief and download your flight plan. Sort of like the real ACARS, which I think is kind of cool. Let's also go ahead, and while we're here, we're going to request our wind data. And so that is now pending. And with that, I'm going to go back to the tuning page. And so that information is there. And I believe that you set your username up over here. And if you go, there is a settings page in the EFB. And that's where you would go and do your settings. Okay, so all of that's good. Our cargo is loading. Let's go over and start doing the load sheet here. Let's get rid of that. Okay, so we know that we're going to be transporting Airbus wings, and so that's going to be 8.6 kgs. So we're going to go ahead and put that in there. Our zero fuel weight is already entered at 98.7, and our fuel on board, we're going to get that information off the flight plan. Here is my flight plan. I'm using the United Airlines 2018 format for my flight plans out of SimBrief. And if you look down here, there is that number. 21.5 is what we're going to do. It's 21,530 kgs. Well, we're going to put this in here as a number, again, as 21.5. And you actually type that in with numbers. Oops, I hit a 6. How about a 5? And then you have to hit the enter button, and then that goes ahead and loads your fuel on board. And with that, we're going to go and hit the load, payload, and fuel button. It's going to compute some things for us. And now we're going to send to the takeoff performance stuff. Oh, and here we are. There's the takeoff performance page right there. And so all of that's good. I need to go and have a quick look here. We're going to be taking off from Hardin Airport. That is EGNR. So EGNR. And hit enter. And now that's going to go and start getting a little bit of information. Now the EFB, electronic flight bag, knows that our elevation's 45 feet. Now we're going to get our runway for departure, and we know we're going to be taking off on runway 22. And so now it knows a few other things. Let's go ahead and do an ATIS request. And so now it's going to go out into the world and get an ATIS, or basically, a METAR really. And it's going to read it, and it's going to insert the METAR data over here on the conditions page. Generally, with this airplane, I found that for configuration on takeoff, I take off with flaps 15 slats, and 15 flaps. So I choose 15 and 15. And then everything else is good. The runway condition today in Hardin is dry. Anti-ice can be off. Air conditioning is going to be on, and we're going to do a flex takeoff. We're going to save a little bit of fuel and wear and tear on our old engines there. So now we're going to go ahead and compute these numbers through the electronic flight bag. And again, this isn't exactly the way Airbus is going to do it, but this is so cool because the pilots are actually going to be doing these sorts of things. And so now here's our V1, VR, V2, and our flex temperature is going to be 58 degrees. Trim setting is going to be down 0.9. Okay, so we've done that. We've ATIS requested. Now let's go ahead and we're going to do something called sending the data. And we're going to send the data. I'm going to send it to the FMS, but really with this airplane, we don't do it with the FMS like that. What we really do is we send it to the card. And we have now sent it to the card. And if you look down here, in between the FMSs here, there is a takeoff card. And this has sent all of that information to our takeoff card. This is really where we're going to get our flex temperature, our trim setting, our center of gravity. We're going to do our acceleration altitude, and our V speeds. See, these FMSs were not designed for a Beluga. They were designed for an Airbus A310, I believe. And so this is good for basically LNAV, but not VNAV. I'm going to go ahead and click the align the IRS number. Our takeoff company data is in as well, and it's aligning the IRSs. The uplink is good, so we're just going to clear all of that out of there, and all of those things are good to go for the moment. While everything is aligning, let's go up here and we're going to do the fire checks on this airplane. And just like most airplanes, we're going to do a fire check here on the APU, hit the squib test button, and the light goes on. And then we're going to hold the loop test button. It's going to show loop test A, loop B, and then the light's going to go on and flash at us. And then it's going to beep at us a few more times. And it did. It's always nice when the airplane does what you think it's going to do. Now let's go ahead and do the squib test. 2 agents, squib agents on the engine, and those are good. Now we're going to hold down loop test button. There is loop A, loop B, and the lights go on, and then it's going to flash off and go on and continue and complete the test. One of the things I was going to notice here is while we're doing this, did you notice that the battery lights are changing around here? Yeah, that's basically it's keeping an eye on all 3 of our batteries and keeping them charged. And so you'll see those things moving around a little bit as the batteries get used and need a little bit of a charge here and there. And that's kind of cool. And there is our 3 fire systems. Those are all tested now. And it'll beep one more time, and fire tests are good. Now we're going to go down here, and like most Airbuses, the APU is right here in the center. We're going to turn it on, and we're going to see the fuel pump is showing low pressure, but then it pressurizes itself fairly quickly, and now we can go ahead and hit the start button. And so now our APU is going to be starting. The actual real gauges for the APU are back behind the co-pilot. But if you wanted to use ECAM gauges and see what's going on, the ECAM is down here by the co-pilot here too. The thing about this is this was an old A300, and this is back before the days that they really trusted airplanes, computers on airplanes. So really, you see an awful lot of old steam gauges here, but over here you see the APU and the computer. So this one actually shows up here because they wanted the pilots to look at the real gauges, not this fancy computer stuff. So anyhow, that's an interesting thing about these older Airbuses. Now let's go back down, and while the APU is firing up, we're going to go to Flight Plan, and let's go to EGNR, and this is where we're going to put in our SID and our departure. So here we are. We're going to depart off of runway 22. We're going to do the wall 4 departure, and let's just go ahead and insert that. Looks pretty good. So let's pop out here just a bit. And up here, I'm going to go and switch this from map to plan. I'm going to kick this out to about 30 miles, and I'm going to turn on constraints. Now we're going to go back out here, and you see our map. Let's click it, and we're going to go down, and let's go and page through this thing. So it was, just like the real pilots, they're going to go and do this too. They're going to go and do, there's our runway for takeoff. After wall, we're going to Asim and Barton and Sonex and Denby. And they're, of course, going to be holding their flight plan in front of this and making sure that what's on this little map here is where it is that they want to go. There's Amville, Dolas, Lamzo, and Eel. And as we come on in here, there is old Ribzo, and then there's EDHI. And Ribzo is our last spot in the flight plan. So let's click the EDHI button and click the star button. And we know that coming in, we're going to be getting runway 23. So let's do ILS runway 23. And we're going to not really do a transition. There's no real star here, but we do want a transition. And we want to see, is there Ribzo? There sure is. There's the Ribzo transition. And that's good. Let's go ahead and insert it. And then it takes us all the way back to the top of our flight plan. So we're going to be real pilots here, and we're going to go down, and we're going to make sure that nothing funky changed here. We're also going to look for any route discontinuities. Oh, there is a top of descent. How about that? And then there is Ribzo. After Ribzo, we kind of loop around here. We've got some speed restrictions as we come around and set up for our landing. And then the other thing to notice here is it looks a little like a bowl of spaghetti down here. This also, it goes and puts in your missed approach for you. So if we have to go and do a missed approach after landing, so there's runway 23, now it shows you beyond that, it shows you the missed approach. So missed approach, go to D229 Charlie, and then we go out and hold at ham, which leaves the door open for some really bad ham jokes, but I'm going to just go ahead and be nice to you. Now on this one, I haven't found a fast place. You can't just hit flight plan and have it take you back to the top. You just got to go and click the button and go all the way back up to the top there. Okay, so we're good to go there. This is the point when the real pilots are going to hit the secondary flight plan button. I am not good with this, so this is a part of this that I'm just not going to do because I don't know what I'm doing with that. So I'm going to leave that alone, but that's something I need to spend some time learning. The real pilots are going to set up a secondary flight plan in case they have to land, engine failure on takeoff. They have to go back to land. They're going to install the ILS for their departure runway. So all they have to do is punch a button, and they're all set up to go back and land. From here, we're basically going to go back to the next thing to do, and there's a couple little buttons up here. So we powered up the airplane a good 5-10 minutes ago. The thing is if you hit these pitch trim buttons and turn them on, if you haven't had power on the airplane for more than 5 minutes, they're going to click off on you. So you have to do these after about 5 minutes of power. We're also going to turn on the yaw dampers, ATS auto throttle system, and those are going to go on too. Looking down here to the power, we can see that the APU is now available. So we're going to go up here and we're going to turn the APU bleed on. That looks good. Now I'm going to look over here at the electricals, and I'm going to see if the APU generator light is on. If the APU generator light is showing it as off, then we want to make sure that we are on the APU generator, because now I'm going to go ahead and turn off external power. So we're going to be powered on the airplane here, and all of that is good. By now our wings have been loaded, so let's go back to the EFB, and we're going to go to ground ops, we're going to go to ground services, and we're going to go to loader, and we're going to remove the loader. And while we remove the loader, let's go out over here. It's going to take a while, because remember it had those little levelers, so it's raising the levelers right now. And then as soon as this thing starts rolling back, the ground crew is going to close the doors. If we go and just zoom up here, if you look up in the, there's our Airbus wings that we're going to transport down over to Hamburg. So right now we're waiting for this thing to finish up. Those levelers are slowly coming up, and then this thing is going to slowly move away. So all of that is good. Let's go back over here. And so the loader is removing. Our airplane has been fueled. So let's get rid of the fuel truck. We're done with that. And we can also disconnect the ground power unit because we're now running off the APU. So now that that's good, let's go ahead and plan our pushback. So for plan pushback, we hit that button, and this automatically connects to better pushback. This is one of the brilliant things that I think that the people from AnyBuilds did. And I'm not doing this in conjunction with AnyBuilds or anything like that. Nobody paid me to say that. I just think that they have done such a great job. So from here, we're going to go, and it pops us outside the airplane. And we're going to go here, and we're going to push back a little bit here. And then we're going to spin the airplane. And I think that this is the Beluga start zone here. So we're going to go ahead and set ourselves up there. And there's our Beluga starting pad. So all that looks good. Let's hit enter.
Ground to cockpit. Plan acknowledge. Call me through the menu when you're ready.
Okay, so we're good to go there. So we've set that thing, and that's good. Now let's go ahead and do a few other things, because we're still waiting for this loader to go back. But right now they still have to get those levelers out of the way. Eventually this thing's going to start rolling back away, and the big cargo hatch is going to start closing. Yep, there it goes. Boy, it's really nice when the simulator does what you... Anyhow, so this thing is going there. If we go and just jump right out again and have another look at this and go back in, you can see that the big hatch here is starting to close. So, yep, it's starting to close now. And it kind of sounds pretty good too. So while that's loading, now we're going to go and do some work here on the flight control unit. We got to enter some stuff in here. And the first thing we've got to enter in here is our V2. And I usually add a little bit to that V2. So it says our V2 is 136, 146. How about 156 for our speed? That just gives me a comfortable little speed on takeoff. And we're not going to bend the flaps or anything like that, but that's kind of a good idea. If we were on VATSIM right now, we might be clear to 10,000 feet or something initially. We're not on VATSIM, so we're going to go ahead and put on our final cruising altitude. And so we're going to click the center of the button, and that is going to change this instead of by hundreds of feet, by thousands of feet. And our final cruising altitude today is flight level 290. So we're going to pop that in. Next thing we need to do is enter the runway heading. And so if we go over here, now NDP charts, I really like the NDP stuff because this is the Lido style of charts. The problem is that we're getting with this right now is NDP does not recognize Hardin Airport. So we're going to go over to Navigraph for this. And we're taking off on runway 22. So, and there's nothing wrong with Navigraph or Jepson. I'm just trying to learn something new. We're taking off on runway 22. And so that means our departure heading is 222. So let's go over here, and we're going to put in our departure heading of 222, our runway heading in there. So we're going to pop that in now. And there's 222. So all of those are good. We're going to look down here, make sure the flight directors are already on. So that's a good thing. I'm also going to move my plan back over to the map because I generally like to use the map and put it on 15 miles, and that's going to be good for our takeoff. So all of those things are good. We also need to go and do an altimeter setting. So over here, let's go to EGNR. This is Sim Toolkit Pro, and we're going to hit the METAR button for EGNR. And here's the latest according to Sim Toolkit Pro. So let's just go ahead and Control-C, and I'm going to put that in here. And that way it's just in my little flight notes in a text file. But wait, maybe you don't have Sim Toolkit Pro. Well, there's something cool you can do here. Let's go back to the electronic flight bag, and let's hit the ADIS button. And here's the departure METAR. Let's hit the update button. That's the exact same information that I got out of Sim Toolkit Pro. So if you don't have it, you've got this right in here, and we can go 1009. So let's go in here and put in our departure airport 1009. There it is, 1009. Now, another thing to do is I've actually got all my altimeters kind of tied together right now. A little less work, but the backup instrument over here, This is something that the folks from AnyBuilds totally redesigned, and it's really a very nice backup instrument. So you can go over here and just check to see that our altimeter is set and it's 1009. The other thing that we're going to do is we're going to put in our destination altitude, and that's kind of hidden. So you see there's this little knob here for changing the integrated lighting here on the flight control unit. Well, if you look down here, oh, look at that. There's our landing elevation. And so for our landing elevation, we'll go to our charts. Now this one's over on the other system, so let's go to the charts. Let's go to the airport ground chart for Hamburg, and we'll look in the lower left corner, and our airport elevation is 21 feet. So if we look over here, it basically goes up by hundreds. So there's 100 feet right there. So let's just go ahead and leave it right there at 20 feet. So we've got our landing elevation. Now the next thing that we need to do is we need to go down here and we need to look at several things. First of all, our flex temperature. We're going to flex to 58 degrees and save a little bit of fuel. And we do the flex temperature over here. So we need to change to flex temperature and go to, I already forgot, 58 degrees. So let's dial up 58 degrees. There's our flex temperature set for takeoff. So that's good. So we got that, we got that. What else can we do? Well, look at that, the access. If we look down here, we see the big old cargo door is closed, but the access hatch is still open underneath the airplane. So let's go back over here, and we're going to go to the EFB, and we'll go to ground ops, go to exits, and we're going to close the service hatch. And while the service hatch is closing, the other thing we're going to do is we need to open the big doors around the Beluga here. So they've got these doors around here. And this is another payware. I didn't have this on my chart. This is another one that you kind of need to do all this. You need the SAM scenery stuff. So let's go to SAM and Airport Operations System. And we're going to go to Controls. And we're going to open the Beluga doors. So let's go ahead and get those doors open. And you can see the doors are slowly sliding open right now. So all of that is good. Okay. All sorts of good stuff's going on here. We got the altimeter set. The flight control unit is set. The destination altitude. We've got the flex temperature set. Flight directors are on. I think it's time for us to start thinking about doing our little pushback. So let's go back over here and we can use the EFB. The service hatch is now closed too. So we're going to go over here. Let's go to ground services, pushback, and let's start the push.
Ground to cockpit. Tow is driving up.
Okay, so the tow is now driving up. One of the things that we're going to need to do is have the parking brake set. So let's go ahead and set the parking brake. That's good there. Let's also return. And now that the parking brake is set, we're going to pull the chocks. We generally wait until things are ready to go as far as pulling the chocks, but we're gonna kind of watch this from a different angle. Let's go outside the airplane here. Kind of come around in here. Now you see the big old loader is gone, and all we've got is our Beluga. They're hooking it up. You can see the chocks are gone. You can also see that the hatch underneath has been moved up, and the doors are open. So.
Okay, all doors and hatches are closed, ready to connect.
Okay, parking brake is already set, so they're connecting, so that's good. There they go connecting. One of the things that I'll usually do at this point is when the guy says ready to connect, what I usually do is this is when I go in here and I turn on my beacon. So I'm going to turn on the beacons on the airplane. There are lights, more lights are flashing on the airplane, letting people on the ground know this big thing's going to start moving. And by the way, speaking of big things, if you've got a set of VR glasses, goggles like Oculus or Valve, walk around this thing in VR. And that kind of gives you an idea of just, whoa, this is a very big airplane. We're almost ready to go.
Bypass pin inserted. Release parking brake.
Okay, so he said release parking brake. So I've got that remoted over to my stick here. So parking brake is released.
Starting pushback, and you may start engines.
All right, and we're going to see this thing slowly push its way out of here. There it goes. And we can kind of follow along just a little bit if we want to. Whoops. There we go. Let's go over here to the Airbus gate. And we can kind of watch it do its pushback here. The sound you hear of the little jet engine, you can even see a little bit of fuzzy stuff behind the airplane, but that's our APU that's running. So all of that's good, and this thing's going to push us right over here to this diamond area, which really, you know, I'm not 100% sure. I think this is the Beluga starting zone. So they'll push you back, start out here, and then this is how you taxi out. So there is our pushback. Let's tidy up a little after ourselves. I don't know that it actually has any effect on anything, but we're going to go ahead and close the doors, close the Beluga doors here to the hangar. So we'll do that. Okay, as this thing is slowly doing its pushback, let's go back into the cockpit. And the parking brake is off. We're going to go ahead and start turning some stuff on. Let's do our fuel pumps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 fuel pumps. We're also going outside the airport. If it was wintertime, it was snowing, we'd want to have our window heat, and we're also going to start to turn on our probe heat too. And it's also time to start thinking about starting the engine. So just like the other Airbuses, the A319, 20, 21, there is an ignition off, crank, and start. We're going to use starting system A today. And so we've got that good. And when these two lights turn white, they're armed. We're going to go ahead and start engine number 2. It changes to blue. We're going to look down here, and as the pushback continues, you see the N2 is going up. So as the N2 goes up, it's 14, 15, 16, 17. At just over 20 is when I'm going to go and turn on my fuel. 19, 20. Let's go over here. There is the engine 2 fuel cutoff, and that's going on. And that's adding fuel, and you can even hear and probably see there's the engine spinning up, and it's starting up too. And our pushback is almost done. So that's good. There's another person out here that's going to kind of wave us around a little bit. Okay, we just heard a click.
Operation complete. Set parking brake.
So parking brake is now set.
Disconnecting tow. Stand by.
Okay, we also heard the click up here, and you can see the start 2 is now white. We can now go ahead and start up engine number 1. So let's hit the start button on engine 1. There it goes. It's up and running. There goes the N2 for engine number 1. And so all of that's going to pop on. They're still disconnecting the tug system. And 20. Let's go down here. And there goes engine number 1. So that's popping on. That little thump you heard is them disconnecting the tow. So the tug is now moving out of the way here.
Tow is disconnected and bypass pin has been removed. Hand signal on the right. We'll see you next time and have a safe flight.
Okay, hand signal on the right. Thank you. We'll look for that. Okay, engine number 1 is starting up really good. We've turned on our window heat, our probe heat. The flash you see of all the monitors here on the left side of the airplane, that is the airplane switching over from the generator on the APU. The left side of the airplane is now being powered by the generators on the left engine. The same thing happened over on the right side when we started up engine number 2. And we've got 2 good starts on our engines, so we can go down here, and we're going to go ahead, and just like in the other Airbuses, we're going to go to ignition off. If it was raining outside, we would turn it to continuous relight, but right now it's not raining, so we can leave that off. We're also done with the APU bleed system over here, so there's the bleed, and so what we're going to do is turn off the bleed and see that the engine bleeds have powered up, and pack 1 is also on too. There are 2 packs, but we have such a small area that we need air conditioning packs on for. We only run 1 pack at a time on the Beluga. And the other thing that we can do is we can go here and we're going to switch off the APU switch. Let's see, we probably missed it, but our tug has given us our salute and release from guidance. So the tug is clear of the area, and the pushback is really now complete. It's time to talk taxi. So let's go down here, And we're going to go down to this communication system. If we were on VATSIM, we would be talking on 122.8 on Unicom, excuse me, CTAF, or we would be talking on talking to tower or ground. Let's go ahead and clear. The wind data has been received. That's cleared. But we're going to go over here and hit the ATC button anyway. And we're going to turn on traffic. Let's go back to the tuning page, and we're going to turn on the ATC TCAS system to TARA at the moment. Could be that maybe this is an older airplane, and maybe we need to switch it, but I just leave it on TARA. That's just, you know, reduces a little of my workload in the cockpit. This is a two-person cockpit. We're one person, so there you go. The other thing we're going to do is I'm going to hit the reset button. That's the rudder trim reset button. That's good to go too. We'll look over here. Remember, our takeoff trim is 0.9. So let's go down here, and the way you set that is you spin the wheel, and there is 0.9, and there you go. So that's good to go, and I think we're now ready for taxi. So let's go over here, and we're going to turn on the nose light to taxi. Now, this guy is standing out here is, you know, don't worry, he'll move. So I think we're ready to go. Parking brake is going to go off. We'll move that up there. Parking brake is off, and here we go. Going to have to add a little bit of thrust to get this big thing going. And there we go. We've started to move. You can see the airplane moving there. Guy, you better get out of the way. There is a very big airplane coming at you. Dude, finally, disappeared. Pretty good timing on that, too. The Beluga barn doors are now closed. And now we're going to slowly start to come out here. Now, if we were going all the way down to Toulouse, France, which is Beluga HQ, where they do all the assembly, one of the things that we would probably, you'd notice, is instead of one Beluga barn, there's 3. So they could have more Belugas there if they need to. I should probably get on my taxiway center line here, like a good pilot. Okay, you can see the stripes have changed here. This would be when ground control is going to send us over to tower. All right, that's a much better pilot on the line where we're supposed to be. You notice the profile of the airplane here. You notice this is the lower part, the old A300. That lower part, that would be the cargo area here. So they've actually dropped the cockpit there. And here's our hold short line. And let's stop and be good pilots and wait here. So this would be where we're waiting to talk to tower and clear us out onto the runway. Over here, we're going to go back over to the Jepson charts. So we are over in Beluga zone, and we are over right here at Echo 1. So that's our hold short point. There are no taxiways. This is not a commercial airport for jetliners and passengers. So we're going to have to back taxi on this one, and we're going to back taxi, so it's a right turn. So let's go ahead and assume we are cleared to go out there. When I get a clearance to go onto an active runway, is when I turn on my strobes. I'm also going to drop my landing lights out of the bottom of the airplane because I want to be in a bit of an attention freak here. And we're going to add a little bit of thrust. This is a really nice airport that the Hardin Airport came with the Beluga. So you get a free airport if you decide to buy a Beluga. Now, one of the things that happens if you bring your throttles down way too hard, it's going to go and it's going to move your speed brakes out. I don't think I'm doing that right. So, but it is, if you pull your throttles all the way down, it automatically deploys your speed brakes. That's probably a setting that I've kind of screwed up there. All right, so all of this is looking pretty good. We made our right turn out onto the runway. We're going to start adding a little bit more power here, but remember, very big, bulky airplane, so we don't want to get it going too fast. All right, that looks pretty good. Let's start doing some takeoff things. Arm the speed brakes. Speed brakes are armed. That's good to go. Flaps. Flaps are going to be 15. Make sure that we're centered up here on the taxiway here. And flaps are over here. So co-pilot's going to go and do flaps 15. So that's 1. There's flaps and slats to 15. So those are kind of coming out the airplane here. And they're modeled fairly nicely, too. I mean, this whole airplane is modeled really nice. But there goes our flaps and slats down. So that's good. There's the end of the runway. Because we're going to be having to do a turnaround, a 180-degree turn, one of the things you'll do is you look down here and see, okay, which side is the little turnaround side on? Oh, that's going to be over here on the right. So we're going to be making a right turn and then a left turn. So that's good to go. Everything else is looking good. Now, like a lot of flight simulator airplanes, there is the quote-unquote hidden toga button or takeoff mode button. And if you look over here by the auto throttle button here, there is a screw right here. You can kind of see. It's really a little bit hard to see. But you can see my pointer here and see how it changes to, you know, the finger. Not that finger. You push that button. That is the hidden takeoff button. Takeoff mode button. So what I've done is I've remoted my takeoff button to my throttles. I think. Yeah, I did. I did it on one airplane. I just hope I remembered to do it on this one. Okay, so here we go. We come out here. There is our little turn for our 360 at the end of the runway. And if you look down here carefully, it says GS 11. You want to be doing these kinds of tight turns at about 10 knots or less. Now we're at 10 knots. So that's good. Almost ready. Now there's a thing about the auto brakes on this system, and I don't quite understand it, but basically, you know, you turn on your auto brakes. That's one of the last things you do. In case, you know, if you tap the brakes or something, that clears the auto brakes. I clearly don't understand that, but there's a couple of things that I'm going to do before takeoff. Okay, and there we go. Let's go ahead and do our 360. Nice view of the trees as our Beluga makes its turn onto the runway for takeoff. And you might have to add just a little bit of thrust to keep this thing going. And I'm going to add probably a little bit of thrust on the right engine for this. I don't have nose wheel steering set up on this one because my throttle's a little messed up right now, and that's unfortunate. For, you know, the twist that you can set up for nose wheel steering. So I don't really have that set up at the moment. Now we're just going to fine-tune ourselves and get ourselves lined up on the runway for takeoff. And it looks like we're good. Okay, last few things. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to do auto brakes to max. I'm going to hit the nav button on the flight control unit. All of that's good. Landing lights are going to go on. Let everybody on the ground know this airplane's serious about flying and it's time to go. So throttle's up just a little bit. We're going to make sure that both engines are stabilized. And this is usually where I go and push my throttles up to above 40%. When it's above 40%, I hit the toga button or the thrust button, really. We're not doing a toga takeoff. We're doing a flex takeoff. But you saw the auto throttle light maybe go on. So now the computers are in control of the engines. Airspeed is now alive. We need to do a little bit of right rudder here. We got some wind today. And we're coming up on 80 knots. A little more right rudder today to keep us centered up. I'm not doing good with that at all. 100 knots. And V1. And rotate. And we are up and away. Center the rudders. Positive rate, landing gear. There goes our landing gear. There goes our takeoff. Flying outside the airplane is always difficult. And gear is now tucked up. Let's go ahead and start our turn. I'm going to follow the flight directors here and start the turn. Okay, we're about 1,000 feet up now, so we're not too bad. Let's go ahead and hit the flight level change button as we make our turn. We're also going to go into climb mode. Still following my flight directors like a good pilot. And it wants us to climb a little bit more. This thing will climb like a rocket for sure. Still making my turn around here. Okay, and there is the letter F. We can go up and do a notch of flaps. Speed's still coming up. Wants us to climb even faster. Okay, that's good. Stop the turn. We're now heading direct to that wall checkpoint. Now let's go ahead and climb the way the airplane wants us to. Again, what I'm trying to do at this point is I want to center my flight directors here. We're in clouds. I should be also checking to see if icing. That's pretty well centered. Let's go ahead and engage the autopilot. AP is engaged. I'm going to slowly release all the pressure on my flight stick. Take my feet off the rudder pedals. And we have a nice, smooth transition to auto flight. As we come out of the out of the clouds here, you can see we are climbing like a rocket here. But our airspeed is holding at about 160, so, you know, I think it's relatively happy. Passing 7,000 feet. Let's go ahead and now increase our airspeed a bit. Let's go to 240. Actually, I'm going to go to 210. We have a fairly tight turn to make here. So I'm going to increase my airspeed to 210 around this turn at wall. Again, wow, does this thing just climb so fast? Now, one of the things that I totally forgot to do was show you the checklist. We'll look at that in a second. There's the letter S for slats. Once we pass that, the rest of our slats and flaps can go up. Let's also go down here, and we're going to push the speed brake button once and disarm the speed brakes. We're coming up on 10,000 feet. We got this tight turn to make here. So I'm kind of keeping my speed, you know, it's more than 90 degrees, and I've found that these jetliners, if I can make it at about 210 knots, that seems to be happier. There's 10,000 feet, so we can go ahead and turn off the landing lights. The nose light is already off, but we're going to go ahead and flip that switch anyway. How about, we're not quite to wall, but let's say that ATC just gave us a direct to. So let's go direct to and ASMIM. Direct to and insert. There's our turn. GPS primary is set. I'm just usually clearing some of these things down here and letting us know that the airplane's operating the way it's supposed to be. Okay, there's direct to ASBIM. And now that that's happened, we're above 10,000 feet. We've done that tight little turn. Let's go ahead and increase our speed. I usually climb at about 280 in this airplane. So, and I'm using the thumb wheels, and so every now and then that fires off a zoom in. So that's what happens there. The memo here in the ECAM is telling us that the total air temperature is in the icing zone. It's -3. We are out of the clouds right now, so we don't need to turn on the anti-ice at the moment. But if we go back into clouds, we're in the zone. And our speed is now climbing. We're still climbing at about, 1,000 plus feet per minute. Direct to ASMIM. 260. All that looks good. We've got auto throttle engaged, level changes engaged, and we're in nav mode. Just like other airplanes, if you hit the center of the heading button here on the flight control unit, that's going to center that heading indicator. It isn't going to take you out of LNAV mode, but it is going to center that up, so in case you do have to go out of LNAV and into heading select, you just have one button to press, so you kind of keep that updated quite a bit. The transition out of here, I believe, is well past. So let's go ahead and reset the altimeters to standard. I think it's like 6,000 feet here. It's very easy to find on the Lido charts. It's not as easy to find on the old Jepson style charts. Passing 15,000 feet, our climb is good. Flaps are and slats are up. We're in climb mode. Now, most of the Airbuses, you just do gear up, gear down. The older Airbuses, though, they actually had a gear off or neutral position. So as we're doing the climb, we're going to reach over and put our landing gear lever into the neutral position. They ended up dropping that one in later Airbuses, but these like first generation Airbuses had a neutral position. Passing 17,000 feet. Everything looks good here. The hydraulics are all in the green zone. Those look good. All of our electrical systems appear to be normal. The fuel pumps are on. We've got probe heat and window heat on. We have pressure in the airplane. So we've got bleed pressure is on. Pack 1 is on. If you're a little bit too hot, here is the temperature, the thermostat for your for the cabin. No seatbelt signs. Don't have to do that. There's no seatbelt signs on this. From what I understand, these Belugas had a pilot and a co-pilot, and then they also had a loadmaster / flight engineer. And so this was there's a third position on these older Belugas. The newer Belugas, the XLs, those are based on the A330, so it's a different cockpit, more modern. I don't know if it's still a three-person crew or not. It very well could be, because the two newest versions of the Beluga XLs that they still haven't finished, and Airbus isn't flying yet. They're trying to get ETOPS certification for those airplanes, which means we'll be able to take these things on across-the-pond flights. So, you know, if any builds, hint, hint, decides to make us a Beluga XL, hint, hint, then we could take Belugas on across-the-pond flights, and I think that would be fun. Okay, we are coming up on Barton here, and you can even see a top of climb banana indicator there, which is pretty close to the top of climb hockey stick that's up there. Hockey stick isn't my term. That's Captain Mike Ray, formerly of United Airlines, who wrote some really great books about how to be an airline pilot. When he was a Boeing captain, and he's retired now, and he writes a lot of books. But when he started writing books about Airbuses, he calls those the hockey sticks. So can't take credit for the hockey sticks comment. Passing 22,000 feet, our climb is going really good. So the airplane continues its climb out over UK. I would love to show you some of the really nice Orbix UK True Earth scenery here. I mean, we can see a little bit of it through the clouds, but as usual, whenever I'm flying through the UK, it's cloudy, which, you know, and I don't live in the UK, so I can't whine about it too much, but it means I hardly ever get to see the really great Orbix stuff. Here is our flight plan over here on Sim Toolkit Pro. You can see that we did our nice departure out of the airport. You can see the little corner I cut here at Wall. And then there's Asmim and Barton as we continue our course up there to Denbigh. We're going to continue across the northern part of the UK here and then go out over some water. We'll come on in here. And it looks like we got a little bit of nasty weather here. There's Ribzo and there is Hardin. So there is our whole route of flight. It looks like it could be a little bit stormy where it is that we're going. We'll get a weather update for our arrival in just a bit. But right now, as we continue our climb, have you ever gone walking through the Beluga before? I mean, this airplane is just a big old cargo plane with a big old cargo hold, but there's a lot of interesting things to see. So as we pass 25,000 feet, We're doing really good, and as soon as we get to our final cruise, we'll take the walk through the Beluga. Then we'll hit pause on the recording, and then as we start to get ready for our approach and landing into Hamburg, restart it again so you'll see all the things. You know, there's no reason to see all the other stuff. You know, hey, an exciting, you know, live stream of cruise flight. Memo has just cleared. We're out of the clouds and out of the freeze zone, so that's good. If we look over here, we can see that the temperature in the cockpit is 24 degrees. We can also see some basic engine indications here too. Cabin altitude, we're pressurizing ourselves to 2,500. Vertical speed, we're going up by about 600 feet per minute, which is good, means our ears aren't blowing out. Passing 26,000 feet. The checklists, if we wanted to have been good pilots, if you go down here and do checklists, there's the A300-600-ST. And so we kind of followed these things. There's the after start. If you look down here, there's before takeoff, after takeoff and climb. So our slats and flaps were retracted. Landing gear was up and neutral. That's an important reminder on this airplane. Check to see the packs are on. We've reset the altimeters. And so everything is looking good here. So we've got set up for the approach in just a bit. Let's go to the ATIS page. And now we're going to do the arrival METAR. So right now at Hamburg, the winds are 270 at 10, planning to land on runway 23. Winds are pretty good for that. We've got light rain in Hamburg. The altimeter is 1007, perfect for the spy flight. Temperature is 9, dew point is 8. Visibility might not be all that great. Didn't mean to rhyme there, but there you go. So we'll update this a few times too. And we're approaching 28,000 feet. Remember, our final cruise is flight level 290. Oh, look at this. The flight control unit, the airplane, has switched us over to Mach, like a good airplane. And according to the flight plan, we're going to be cruising at Mach 0.68. So as we go into final cruising altitude, we're going to go and switch this over to the progress page. I'm going to put the flight plan page, two P's, hard to say together, I guess, and I'm going to leave that over for the first officer. And it's at 29,000 feet. We got one more button to push. We come over here, and we're going to go out of climb mode and put it in cruise mode. So now we're in cruise mode for the engines. And it's going to level us out, and we are in cruise. We are currently 504 nautical miles out from Hamburg. So let's go ahead and take the tour around the airplane. So here's the best seat in the house, captain's seat right here. There's first officer seat. We've already looked up here and seen the upper panel. You look back here, there is the third person in the cockpit. There's also an observer seat back here too. So that's pretty cool. There's the observer seat. And notice there's no door here between the bathroom here or anything like that. They took that door out. Well, don't really need to have one here. But you probably notice this rather thick door back here. That's a pressure door. See, the rest of the airplane isn't pressurized. We're pressurized up here. We got a little closet here. I'm guessing that this is where you put your overnight bags. We do have a bathroom. And yes, it is nicely modeled. We've cleaned it. So, and it doesn't smell funny. So that's nice. It slams pretty good too. So let's see. We've got this pressure door here. And you can kind of come up here. And we can look through the pressure door and see all this cool stuff that's modeled. We're going to violate the laws of physics right now and go through a solid. Yes, we get to do that in Flight Sim. And welcome back underneath here. Remember, they lowered the cockpit on this thing. You remember the outside view of the airplane, the profile view? Remember, they lowered this thing down here. So cockpit is essentially at the bottom of the airplane. So as we go back in here, and we're going to have to move ourselves back around. But as you remember, we are now lower than you would normally be in an A300. We're basically in the cargo deck here. Let's go back through. So that's actually the bottom of the airplane, and welcome to the cargo deck. So the passenger deck is going to be up here. There is an emergency exit right over here. It's rather small, so if you have to bail out, you probably could. Remember how I was telling you about the ladder that you have to climb up to get in the airplane? There's the ladder. It's all tucked up here. So there's the ladder down there. There's the lever for the hand ladder. And then we got another ladder over here. So let's go over here and check this ladder out. Now again, we're not in a pressurized zone, so we're not going to open this door or anything like that. It'd depressurize the airplane. There's a little hatch here we can open. And now let's go up here. Holy moly, look at all this. There is the front of the airplane. There's a couple of lights up here, and as we look down around, there's the hatch that we just came out of. And there is our cargo. Very big wings. If you go over here, there's actually some modeled buttons over here. So if it were nighttime, it would be dark up here, and you could actually turn on the floodlights up here. So you could do that as well. You go all the way to the front up here that's closed. You can see the very, very big latches to hold this big thing down while the airplane's going through the air. And there are very, very big Airbus wings. You can see the big lifting mechanism to open that big heavy door here. And then as we go up here, like, oh my goodness, check out those big wings there. This thing has also carried part of the International Space Station. It's carried, you know, a lot of stuff for Airbus. So there's the hatch there. We'll close that and kind of zip our way back down here. Make sure everything's going pretty good. It is. So that looks really good. We're at 29,000 feet. Our airspeed is Mach 0.677. We're trying to be Mach 0.68. That's pretty good. We'll look down here and we'll see, 478 nautical miles out to our top of descent. The takeoff card, so one of the things we could do over here is if you look carefully at the takeoff card over here, and I'm trying to zoom here, I want to show you the landing button. It's hard to see when you look down here because the throttles kind of get in the way, but if we kind of slide over here, the landing button, we're going to hit the landing button. We're going to flip the card over, and now this is going to go and put in our current landing weight, and it's going to be updating this as we go. Full flaps landing, and it's got our VREF, VAP, and flap extension speeds. All of those are set up there ready to go for us when we're going to be landing. Some interesting PDFs came with this airplane, and one of the PDFs that came with this airplane is the A300 Beluga on the line route network documentation. So one of the things is you take a look at this, shows you the Beluga route network, and there's where the Belugas have flown. The people of Anybuilds went and did a bunch of research on where the Belugas have gone and set up the route networks there. You can see there's even a line. It's kind of hard to see on this one. You can't really zoom it in too well. Well, maybe I can. But you look over here and you can see, actually you can, right? Yes, of course you can. It gets a little fuzzy when you zoom it in. But you can see there was even, this was the flight when it took part of the International Space Station over to the Kennedy Space Center. And of course, all over Europe. Let's go ahead and I'm going to put this back to 100. And if you look down here, here are all of the Beluga flights that happen out of Toulouse. So EDHI, that's where we're going, Hamburg. EGNR, Hardin. So that would have been Beluga flight 113, Charlie. And here's a couple more Beluga flights. And so you can basically look at all the different Beluga flights, and you can fly where the Belugas fly. Now, there was also some charter and historic flights that they did in those. Isolated and return flights, some things that they did. So you can go and see where it is that they went. Special flights, transporting an A320 stabilizer to Toronto for a Canadian operator. That was the flight that they did on that one. So that's when that thing had to go across the pond. Transporting masterpiece paintings from Paris to Tokyo. Yes, they carried masterpiece paintings over to Tokyo. The Tranquility Space Station module node number 3, 12,500 kgs. So there was the flight that thing took down to the Kennedy Space Center. So this is a really good PDF if you want to try and figure out, what some actual Beluga operations were like. The other PDF that I really suggest you take a look at is going to be the flight manual. I know nobody wants to read flight manuals, but this is where you're going to find out all sorts of good information, including how to get the freeware, the Hardin Airport, and that's from $0 payware that they put together. Those are the people that I think designed the really good Beluga barn. So there you go. And we are doing pretty good. If you take a look here at the map, we are still over the UK. We're about ready to head out over some water soon. So it's probably a great time now to open your thermos. There's no galley here. And get yourself some coffee. Go and make a trip to that fancy bathroom that's behind the pilot seat there. And we'll restart everything when we start to cross the northern European coast and start setting up for our approach and landing. So, as someone once said, don't touch that remote. We'll be right back when we get closer to landing. Hey there, welcome back to the Beluga flight. I know for you it was only just a matter of seconds, wasn't it? But we're actually have made some pretty good progress here, and it's time to start getting ready for our descent and landing in Hamburg. First of all, let me give you an idea of where we are now. When we wrapped stuff up, we were kind of coming up here in the middle of the far east north English Channel area. And now we're actually over land. You can see it's a little bit on the stormy side as we start to make our way into Germany. And here is our final approach into the airport. We're going to be landing to the southwest here on runway 23. So a couple of things that we got to figure out here. First of all, where's our top of descent? The top of descent hockey sticks in this airplane are meant for an Airbus A310. I don't think it's meant for the Beluga. So the hard part about this is we need to figure out our top of descent. Here is the approach here, and we want to be above 4,000 feet at this checkpoint in the sky. That's Ribzo. And then from Ribzo, we're going to basically go over to high 620, and we're going to kind of come around here, and this is going to set us up for the final approach. So the question is, how do we get to 4,000 feet at Ribzo? Well, what I'd like to do is I kind of like to look down here, and I'm on the progress page, and it says we're 211 nautical miles out from Hamburg, and that's based on our flight plan. So what do? Well, we got to do a little bit of math here. And there's going to be some math, but don't worry, it's not too bad. So 4,000 feet is where we want to stop this thing. So there's, first of all, the little math program that you can do. This is going to be a little hard for you to see. Here are my flight notes. This is the flight notes text file that I use. And over on the Discord channel, before every live spy flight on Twitch, I always put a fresh copy of this. So you can get a copy of this and then just change it so it works well for you. This is what works well for me. So here's all my basic flight data, but here's the math. Well, one of the things that I did is I went and did the main calculation. That's this part here in the middle, which is basically 29,000 feet minus 4,000 feet times 3 divided by 1,000 is top of descent is 75 nautical miles. So if we're going to go ahead and use that particular number right there, 75 nautical miles, that means we start our descent 75 miles out. And if we're using that calculator, that number right there, 203 miles to destination, that's not going to work for us. We want to be at 4,000 feet at Ribzo. So what I did is just another little simple thing. There is the distance between each one of these checkpoints. So 17 miles, 14 miles, 4, 4, 4, 5, 4, 4, 12. Added all those together, and that's basically 75. That's 68 miles. So the second little math problem that I did is 68 plus 75 is 143. So if we want to hit 4,000 feet here at Ribzo, we basically start our descent 143 miles out, and that should do it. Now, that's just guesstimates. That might not be 100% the exact way that you do this, but I think it's what I usually do in the airplane, and it generally works for me. So we are 197. The math said 143. I usually round that up to a number that's easy to remember, so 150 miles. Okay, 150 nautical miles is when we're going to be starting our descent. So we got a little bit of time here. We've got 195, so we got a little less than 50 miles to go before we're going to start our descent. Some other things that I have done in the cockpit before, while I stopped the video here. Some of the things that I did was I got coffee. I got a muffin, a banana nut muffin, and put it in the microwave for 30 seconds, and boy, was it good. In other words, I didn't really do an awful lot here on the airplane at all. And that's the cool part about this. At this point in the flight, all you do is you monitor your flight progress. One of the things that I didn't do a very good job of was up here on the flight control unit. I did not hit the button. And so that's one of the things you want to do is hit the button here and keep that heading updated. That's one of the things that the real pilots are going to do. So once we finish this little turn here, as we go over Eel and go to Doback, there's Ribso. So there we go. And here you can see a top of descent hockey stick right there. I'm not so sure that this thing takes into account constraints on a landing. I'm not 100% sure that it's there. So, and the reason I say that is, especially if you look here, Ribso should have an altitude constraint. Let's see if it does. Maybe I'm messed up here. So Eel, Donback, is Ribso going to show up? There's Ribso. Yeah, 300 to flight level 198 is where it's got. So it's not going to be exactly where we want to be at the moment. Maybe it does, and I'm screwing something up. And be sure to let me know in the comments. I will read them and do a better job on the next flight. So I just updated the heading select altitude. We are going to go down to 4,000 feet. I want to stop there. So 4,000 feet is what I'm going to put in my little altitude window up there. So that's ready to go. Okay, we're going to leave speed and Mach alone. And everything else is good. The current, it's 182. So we said 150. So we're getting close. Let's go over here to the EFB and let's hit the update button. Aha, latest weather. We've got winds 280 at 10 knots, so runway 22 is still a good runway for our landing. We've got light rain still falling there. There's a few clouds at 8,000 feet, scattered clouds at 1,100 feet. Temperature and dew point haven't changed much. They're still pretty close together there. Starting to get into the foggy zone just a little bit, perhaps, generally. The foggy zone is a little foggy when the temperature is there, so it's not guaranteed, but something to have in the back of your mind. When you see the temperature and the dew point getting close together, expect the possibility of a little fog. And the altimeter is still 1007, which is perfect for the spy flight. How are we doing here? 177. We want 150 is when we're going to start the magic descent. So that's good. And all we're going to do for the descent is over here on the flight control unit, we're going to hit level change and just see what happens. And we're going to kind of go from there. On the approach itself, this is also a good time to kind of start getting some things in the back of your mind, things you want to do. So we want to be above 4,000 feet here at Ribso. We've got a speed restriction down here at 220 knots at HI 620. So we're going to remember our speed restriction. We got a couple of 90-degree turns here. And to be honest, when I'm in a jetliner and I've got these sharp turns like this, I want to be 210 more. Really, instead of 210, I would much rather be right around, I'd sort of rather be around 180, to be honest, for these turns. We're still going to be above 4,000 feet over here. Now we're at 3,000 feet as we start to get close to the approach. So this is going to be our next descent point. And one of the things is I want to be at 4,000 feet here. We just have to be above that. We need to be between these two. So we don't actually have to be there. There's also a hold at Ribso too. We ought to try and do a hold someday. Another important thing that I want to make note of is as we're coming on in here and we're starting our descent here around 4,000 feet for our approach. Here is, let's see, Alster, Hamburg EDDH Airport. So this is another airport, and we'll look at that runway right there. And that runway, it looks an awful lot like this runway. Well, we don't want to make the mistake of landing on this runway, so we got to make sure that we're all set on the runway we're going to be on. Another thing that we've got to do as we're getting ready for our landing is the ILS frequency 108.5 and the inbound course, which is 229 degrees. You actually have to put that into the airplane manually. So this was before Airbuses became automatic. And to do that, we have to come down here, and we're going to come over here, and you see where it says ILS. Let's put in the frequency, which is 108.5, 108, whoops. Let's clear those two, 108.5. We're going to put that in as our ILS frequency. Our inbound course is 229 degrees, 229 degrees. So now our ILS is set for the landing. We're probably going to need it today too, because, you know, visibility not so great. You know, that's not so, visibility isn't so awesome. Raining. So we're definitely going to want to have a look at the ILS. 159. Remember, I said around 150. It's 140 something. I rounded it up to 150. So it's almost time to press the button, as Dr. Forrester would always tell Frank in Mystery Science Theater. So we're going to keep a kind of a close eye on this. By rounding it up a little bit, you got a little bit of a fudge factor in there, so you know you don't have to hit it exactly right on, but it's close. After we start our descent, and we're generally happy with the airplane's descent, we're going to set in a decision height. So it's always a good idea to have a decision height. And that's going to be about it as we slowly make our way in. 154. Not much else to do in the airplane. We've still got plenty of fuel. Total fuel in the airplane right now is 11.8 tons of fuel. SimBrief says we need 9.8 tons of fuel in the tanks to be legal, unless we have to hold or divert or something like that. So when we land, if we have 9.8 tons of fuel in our tanks, then that means that we are within the flight plan parameters for fuel usage. Boy, that's pretty good just off the top of my head, sort of. All right. 150 nautical miles out to our descent. So that takes into account the distance between Ribso and the airport. Let's start it. Level change. And we're going to see the airplane probably slow itself down just a little bit. VDEV has just popped up in here too. So, and there we go. We have started down. Now again, this VDEV, I think, doesn't include VDEV for the Beluga. That's for an Airbus A310. So it's nice to see, but I'm not 100% sure that that's exactly, what we need to be paying close attention to. Let's go back over here and let's take a look down here. And we are going to be doing a Category 1 DME approach. See, I think that the Beluga, I hope I'm not wrong, we are a Category D airplane. So that's going to be 290 for a Category 1 DME. So let's go ahead and put in 290. I'm probably wrong on that, so don't quote me on that. And we're going to do that up here. So let's hit decision height and set it to 290. I think I may have taken the wrong number off that one. So like I said, don't quote me on that one for sure. Okay, so that's good. So we have a nice decision height in there. I've got to clearly learn a little bit more. One of the reasons I've been using the NDP charts is so that I can take the time to start learning a lot more about LIDO charts and how they work. Some other things that we can do, we're going to refamiliarize ourselves with the airport coming in on runway 23. So here we are coming in on runway 23 and landing. Beluga land is over here. It's basically spot number 328. That is the Beluga barn here. So we're going to try and hit the Gulf taxiway. And it's going to be a right turn off of Gulf and then right turn into the Beluga area. So that's pretty good. If we miss it, we've got a turnaround point right here for this airplane. So that's good to go there. So let's put that chart back over there. This looks good. That looks good. Another thing to note as we come in the lower right-hand corner, transition. Now, transition level is set by ATC. Generally, in the world of flight sim, I look for a transition level or a transition altitude or something, and that's just the number that I pick. It works when I'm flying by myself and there isn't ATC to set a level for me. So I'm going to remember that. And you can see our descent is relatively good at the moment. We're going down fairly quick at 2,000, so we may be a little bit lower. But there's the little top of descent, bottom of descent banana, I call it. The little arc there. And it's right around Ribzo. So it looks like we're going to probably be around 4,000 feet at Ribzo, and that's going to be pretty good. We do have to change our airspeed at 10,000 feet. We don't want to get a speeding ticket. So, you know, it's below 250 knots at 10,000 feet, so we got to keep a close eye on that. We'll do that. Landing speeds. VAP is going to be 131. I usually like to add about 10 knots to that. So VAP, I'm going to add 10 and call it 140. Round it to a number that's easy to remember. When you're all alone in a plane like this, I feel like, you know, if you can round up a number that's a little bit easier to remember, that's kind of a good thing to do too. Okay, what other trouble can we get into here? Fuel is good. Nothing is red on the engine indicators. That's probably a good thing too. Nothing ready to change down here. We've entered the ILS down here. That's good. Now, if we were on VATSIM and yapping on the radio and stuff like that, see the little VHF button here? We would need to push this button right there and make that blue, that green there, so that you could chat on the radio here. You could tune the frequencies all you want, but you have to hit that button there if you want to do a flight on VATSIM. And I have had this on VATSIM before in a couple of the European VATSIM events, and it's been really good. I took this from Hamburg down to Toulouse in a VATSIM event, and it was great. It really was great. And I think the VATSIM controllers liked having, you know, there were probably about 3 or 4 Belugas flying around there. So that's good. Okay, our map is starting to get a little congested down there, so we're going to dial the map back one. And so that's pretty good. Now we're noticing that our little top of descent here is beyond a little bit closer to Ribzo. So I think we're descending just a little bit too fast here. So we could go and we could change that with vertical speed, but I've kind of found if you slowly start reducing the speed here, so we're going to go down to about 260 here. That's going to slow our descent just a little bit. And see, wow, that thing's now way beyond Ribzo, so that's pretty good. So if you start slowing your descent, just your speed, that kind of helps a little bit. Now, again, maybe that's not the right way to do it, but it's what's working for me right now. Let's go back over here. We're going to hit the update button. Can't update these things, especially for close to the top of the hour, which we are. We're close to the top of the hour here. You can see on the clock right down here. So if we're close to the top of the hour, that's when we're going to start to get some new weather information. So I like to hit that a few times in case there's an updated altimeter setting or something like that. 12,000 feet, let's go ahead and I'm going to slow this down just a little bit more here. Let's go down to 250. Again, that's going to raise this out just a little, move that out just a little bit, but we'll be at 4,000 at Ribzo, and that's fine. And you may notice over here that it looks like there's some trashy stuff here on our approach. What we've got here is, remember that that's also the missed approach. So if we have to go missed, we're going to make a turn out here and head back to Ham, and hold the mayo on that one. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist. Just there you go. Okay, there's 11,000 feet. Our speed is right at 250. Now, generally, because of winds and stuff like that, I'm going to drop this down even more. And so when it's 250, I usually drop that down to 240. That way we're nowhere near going to go over the 250 knot speed limit, because you don't want old Sheriff Buford T. Justice coming after you. Yeah, there's your Smokey and the Bandit reference today. 10,000 feet. Our speed is getting close to is 250, so we're going to go ahead and let's throw on the landing lights. We're also going to pre-arm the taxiway lights too. So that looks good. Nothing else really to do on the airplane. We could go over here to the EFB, and we could go to checklists. And over on the approach, And they still left the word signs here. I don't think that we've actually got passenger signs to set here, but there we go. Briefing. Well, we've been briefing this thing since we started the video. ECAM status. So we just kind of look over here. Our total air temperature is in the frequent icing range, and the landing lights are extended, but everything looks like it's normal there. Temperature outside the airplane, total air temperature is 2 degrees. And we're in clouds. You know what? Let's go ahead and do engine anti-ice at least. If this were a Microsoft Flight Simulator, there'd be, ice and snow all over the airplane there. So altimeters, we'll set both of the altimeters. So that's where we're going to actually have to stop the checklist at this point. We'll have to stop there because we can't finish the checklist until we get to about 4,000 feet. And there's so run. We're coming up on 8,000 there. 240 knots, all of that looks great. So we're getting in a little bit closer. We can go and check and just see where we are here on the moving map. So there's SORUN, there's RIBZO. We've got a little bit of weather out here. Okay, there's a little, there's a yellow zone there. Now, mostly, I don't think I saw an awful lot about thunderstorms today, but this airplane does have weather radar. So let's go over here, and we're going to go ahead and go to System 1 on the weather radar. And in just a little bit, weather radar should start to pop in there. I mean, technically, one of the pilots is also supposed to have terrain radar always on in the cockpit. So I don't have my terrain radar set, so that's good. Nothing wrong in there. Just do a quick message over on Discord. Somebody made a very nice emote for Twitch. Made a nice little sheep emote, so I need to make sure that I save that over there. So save image as. And yeah, sheep is kind of a thing. So let's save that and replace that. I just need to make sure that I get that done before the live stream. Okay, yeah, the things that happen on a YouTube video. But I'll tell you, the Twitch live stream has been an awful lot of fun. Met so many really great friends there. We fly pretty much every day at 1900 Zulu. That's about 3 o'clock Eastern time in the United States. There is a flight plan that is always up, usually about 2 or 3 days in advance, and then an hour in advance I put the actual runways and checkpoints and everything else over on Discord too. Anybody is welcome to come and fly along. You can fly in either X-Plane or Microsoft Flight Simulator or P3D. We forgot to change the altimeter setting. We should change that to 1007. So 1007, so the altimeter's been checked and set. Minimums, we've set minimums. The ignition, though. Now this says the ignition needs to be on continuous relight, and since we're going into rain, that's a good idea. And we've set our landing elevation. So all of those are good. Let's go back over here. Let's go back to ATIS, go back to update. Just make sure. Okay, winds 290 at 8, still light rain. It's 10 degrees, 8, so the spread between temperature and dew point's getting bigger. So that's good. QNH is 1007 still, so that's great. So all of that is good. We'll leave that there. Let's go back to the checklist page and turn our attention back to the airplane. We are now coming up on RIBZO. We're at 4,000 feet. That's good news. Now, the next thing that we got to worry about is a speed constraint, and that's at HI 620. So we got to do that. So that needs to be our next thing, and that's we're at 240. We just got to go down to 220 or less. We can start to throw flaps and slats out. Slats can go out at 182. Flaps at 143. So we can start throwing the flaps and slats out when we start those twists and turns and stuff as we go around there. almost to good old Ribzo there. Seriously, somebody should put in a barbecue place in this general neck of the woods under the Ribzo checkpoint and call it the Ribzo Barbecue. Pilots would love it. Nobody else would get the joke, but pilots would. Well, some pilots would get the joke. Okay, so we are 2 miles from Ribzo, and then we're going to start our turns. There is rain out there. I have turned everything on. Let's see if I've got everything set the way it should be. Let's see. Oh, it's on test mode. I need to turn it to weather. Oops. It's really hard to see. So you got to look in here. And there's the little, there it is there. So it's in test mode there. Now it's in weather mode. There we go. Oh, it looks like there's an off position here. So off, test, and weather. It needed 3 clicks. So we'll see if I did that right. Okay, there's Ribzo. Next step in the process for us is going to be 210 knots. So, no, 220, 210 right here. Let's also go ahead and dial the map in one more click. And oh my gosh, it looks like we've got some scenery out there. And this is all ortho scenery. You know, one of the things is Microsoft Flight Simulator has absolutely stunning, amazing scenery. And while the scenery might not be absolutely stunning, you can make it look really good with ortho scenery and some nice airports. So that's what I've got. I'm running right now is ortho scenery. And then we've also got a custom airport. And in this case, this one was free. So I think we're in really good shape here. Okay, 10 miles, and we have to have our speed to 220. Again, we can't start throwing out flaps and slats until 180. The only other thing that we could do is, since we're getting ready for landing, is the speed brake handle. So we're going to go in arm speed brakes for landing. That's good. And then the other thing that we could do is come over here and do auto brakes, and I'm going to go medium so we don't have to do the back taxi. Okay, so that looks good. 10 miles now. And then we have to, then we'll lower our speed just a little bit more. Quick reminder, if you've been following along, remember the cool thing about YouTube, how-to videos on YouTube is you can stop and start videos and catch up, or go back and try something again. So I hope you're, being sure to stop and start the video as you need it for this flight. Nothing else to do down here. See, my gain is set to auto. I guess there just isn't really much to look at on weather radar. I don't think you need the terrain button. Terrain button is going to just show terrain, not weather radar. I think you can only have one or the other too. So I'm going to turn that off just because I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, so coming up here, let's do the 220. So speed down to 220. That way we're at the speed at the checkpoint, so that's a good thing to do. Speed slows down. You can hear the engine spinning down a bit. There goes our speed tape down to 220. You can see at 210 there is a little green dot there. That's when we could start throwing out some slats. But remember, that is for an Airbus A310, A210, A310. I've gone and confused myself. We need to remember to use these numbers. So 182 is when we can start those things. And we're a mile away. Our speed is good, so around the little horn we're just going to go. I think that one of the things that they do with these kinds of approaches, so we've got this nice little box. This is a little bit like a waiting queue in a way. So we're coming, our next checkpoint is HI 632. Well, if there were no airplanes in here, one of the things they could do is at high 632, they don't need to make us go the whole way around this thing here. So what they could do is go over here and say at high 632, direct high 35. And so that's how they can, and if there's a lot of airplanes in here, They basically can, you know, slow you down and speed you up in this little waiting queue around here. So maybe what we'll do is after we pass high 633, we'll try and do direct to high 035. Because we don't need to go around there. We're the only airplane in the sim sky right now, so we could do it that way. Because we're going to be making some turns there, I am going to drop my speed down just a little bit for these tight turns so that, you know, we're not flying way over a checkpoint or something. And we're definitely in some clouds, but Germany's looking pretty good right now. I think we crossed the river, so we're now officially in Germany. And again, that vertical deviation there, it's nice to see, but again, it's not for this airplane. 10 miles to high 632. See if we start to get a little bit of rain. I think I'm hearing maybe a little bit of rain starting here. It's not showing up, so I probably messed up my... I don't think that there's anything else that I turn on down here. System 1 is on. We're in weather. My tilt is basically at normal, I think. Yep, we're basically normal. And gain is auto. I don't think that there's anything else that you do here. Maybe it's just very, very light rain in this part of the world at the moment. We look up here. All of our lights are set and ready to go. What's the temperature outside the airplane? It's 9 degrees. So technically, we're still in the ice zone. We're 1 degree away. If it were 10 degrees, we could turn off the anti-ice. But we're in clouds. We're below 10 degrees. So the official word is you turn on your anti-ice. High 632, so about 4 miles, and then we'll start another turn. And then we're going to remind ourselves that it is high 35 is what we're going to do. So at 633, we'll do direct to high 35. So to do that, we could go over here to the direct to. And so we could even set that up in here. I'm paging up. Up, there's high 35 right there. So let's go ahead and put that in there. But we're not going to do the insert button yet. So we're going to get just a little bit beyond there. One mile to go. And then we'll reduce our speed and then hit the insert button. Now we're starting our turn. We'll wait till we're established on the turn. Speed to 180. And then the button. So a couple of buttons here now. See how this works. All right, we're nicely established there. Let's go to 180. There's 180. And now let's go down and hit insert. And we're going to see, up there goes our turn. We've started our turn around there. Okay, so slats can go out at 182. Let's go ahead and do slats. And I did that by pushing the button here. So there's a notch of slats. So we're at 15 and 0 right now. There is another S. I think that means we can go one more notch. Hopefully we're not bending the airplane. I think we're supposed to pay attention to these numbers there. So I probably messed that up. Okay, we're coming up here. There, that's exactly where we want to be. We're fairly close to the airport, so we can start going ahead and getting ready to use the LS system. So we're going to switch this out from nav to LS and look down here, and we basically got glide slope and localizer. That looks a little bit too nicely centered up though. Let's wait till we get just a little bit closer. We're still 30 miles from the airport, and sometimes those things get a little twitchy. So I'm not going to go and hit any landing buttons or anything like that until we get just a tad bit closer to this. I kind of feel like that should be off to the side just a bit. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we're right on the localizer, but I don't think so. I think as we get closer, we're going to see that move. Wouldn't it be great if I was right, too? Probably won't be. Setting up the airplane is really easy. It's a very easy download from AnyBuild's website. Setting up the airport is good too, like all that. You just put it in your airplane folder, in your custom scenery folder, and it really does seem to work really well. I definitely suggest getting both of the two PDF files that I had mentioned, the Beluga route and Beluga airplane manual. Maybe make a copy of those and put those on your desktop for a while. Holy moly, look at that. The little diamond is off to the side. I was right after all. Whew. Okay, so we're pretty good there. Let's wait till we get just a little bit closer to this spot here. I'm also going to go ahead and I'm going to dial my map in one last click. So now the map is as short as we can be. We've got 15, 10, and 5 miles. So as we get a little bit closer to the spot here, going to keep an eye on the two little diamonds there. Oh, we could also go down to 3,000 feet. So let's do 3,000 feet and level change. We had to be above 3,000 feet there, but let's just go ahead and do that. That's good. And wow, look at that. Great ortho scenery. Boy, clouds everywhere. It's the story of my... Oh, that's even better scenery. How about that? He said with sarcasm dripping off the microphone. Okay, we're doing pretty good there. There should also be a ham sandwich shop here at Ham. Just should say ham. The pilots would love it. Everybody else, oh, that's nice. It's a... Yeah, clearly my imagination's going a little bit too far here. Okay, last check's up here. That looks good. Let's go to the checklist itself. Landing gear up. We got to do landing gear down, so it's too early for that checklist. We're getting even closer, 2.5 miles. So, up, look at that. The diamond has started to move. Let's go ahead and hit the land button now. And that's going to arm, localizer, and glide slope. And in fact, localizer is starred now. So as this thing gets over there, we'll slowly capture the localizer. Glide slope is blue. So that means we're still not ready to start capturing that glide slope yet. Here's a good opportunity to make sure that you're seated in your seat. You know, in flight sim, you kind of fold up in your chairs a little bit. Make sure you can reach over, grab your stick, grab the throttles, and do all those things as we get in a little bit closer. Now's probably also a good time for hydration. Ah, coffee. Does this airplane have cup holders? Yeah, it's got a little tray down here. There's an ashtray from the old days. We probably need airplanes that have cup holders, just saying. Okay, here comes the airport. We are now on about a 12-mile final. And localizer is still starred. We're still relatively close. Remember, our approach speed is now 130. I'm going to make it 140. So add about 10 knots. In case you've got a gusty wind or something like that. That way you just never get below that number. There is 10 miles. Ooh, we could see the ground. Hello, Hamburg. And we're just kind of keeping an eye out here to see if our little glide slope starts to go down. It has become a full diamond now. Localizer is now no longer starred. It is green, so we've captured the localizer. As this thing goes down, that's going to go from the little blue GS to a star, and then that'll indicate that we're on the glide slope. There's the river. The runway is kind of ahead of us, but I can't see anything. See, if you've got rudder pedals, now's a good time to also get your feet ready to go on the rudder pedals. So that's a good thing to do. If you have a chair that locks, now's a good time to do that. So if it leans back or something, that's a good time to do that too. You don't want a chair that swivels with rudder pedals. That's a problem. Up, we've just captured glide slope. and localizer. So that's good to go too. And if you look down here, there's the edge of the runway coming up on 5 miles. I've usually found watching FlightAware that the airplanes slow down and all of that around 5 miles from the end of the runway. So here we go. That's close enough for me. I'm going to go to 140 on my speed, which is what I decided I want for my approach speed. We're going to go over here and do landing gear. And all of that looks really good. How about another notch of flaps? I don't think we'll get into too much trouble if we throw out another notch of flaps. As we're approaching 140 knots, then we're going to get ready to go with our flaps full. There's flaps full. Let's go over here to the checklist. Landing. Landing gear is down. Auto brakes is required. Anti-skid is checked. I did look at that as on. Slats, flaps are set. Spoilers are armed. Anti-skid, by the way, it's a little button. It's a little switch right here. Make sure that anti-skid is on to normal. It is. And then as we look up, we can see up there's the airport and there's the runway. So we are right in the middle of glide slope and localizer. Our speed is good. Gear down, I've got 3 green arrows. So my landing gear is indeed down. Our speed is good at 140. We're established very nicely. Beautiful little descent here. I think that the autopilot engage and disengage buttons in this airplane are different than the typical X-plane autopilot. So right now I've got an autopilot button over on my stick that I can disengage the autopilot. It doesn't work for me on this one, so I have to find the new button for that. So go ahead, make sure you're ready to go, and the airplane's had enough fun flying. The red button right here, click it once, disconnects the autopilot. Click it again, and that will silence the alarm. And here we go. Now we're going to just watch the approach here. I'm going to watch and see glide slope. Usually you kind of have to help it down just a little bit. I'm going to also look at the indicator. We've got a slight crosswind ahead and to the right. Okay, we're good to go there. Maybe a little bit more over here. It's not that strong of a wind. The other thing I'm going to do is reach over and I'm going to switch over to the airport ground chart. That's a good thing to do if you're in a busy VATSIM event. Remind us that we're going to be making a right turn off the runway. Okay, we'll let ourselves get a little high while I was changing that over. So a little bit of a dive. This is the airport in Germany where if you've got a ship in the river here, you can't land. The ships are too tall. And you don't, so if there's a ship there, you can't land. You need to get over here on the center line a bit. Reversers, green, and decel. I think I did a little bit of floating there. So we get to do a little bit of back taxiing, it looks like. And manual braking. Brakes are a little bit grabby here. Welcome to Hamburg. Okay, this is that mid turnaround point. Speed's about 15 knots on the ground. Would rather be closer to 10. So little braking, but I don't want to get any too much lower than 10. This airplane will stop on you. Okay, as we continue around here, I'm going to turn off my landing lights. I'm going to leave my strobes on, though. So we're going to leave the strobes on. Now, we're coming up here. If you're all set up on your taxi and you've got a second, you can come up here, go to plugins, go to SAM, Airport Operations System, and you can do the Beluga hangar doors, and do both the basic ST and the XL doors. They made these Beluga barns, the scenery, they made it so that you can bring in a Beluga XL. So maybe that might be a little bit of a hint that we're going to get the possibility of a Beluga XL one day. So we can turn off decision height. I don't think we need constraints. So we can do a little cleanup here in the cockpit. See, the speed brakes are still up. So let's put up speed brakes. So speed brakes are up. We could also tuck up the flaps. Ought to put those up. That's probably a good idea, especially if it was a rainy, snowy airport. See, I left my engine anti-ice on. We should probably do that. We could go ahead and flip the APU switch. And since there's already pressure in the system, we can just go ahead and turn that on. And now we're looking for taxiway golf. Left turn this time. There's taxiway golf. You can even see it says golf. And we'll turn here. Again, you want to do a turn about right around 10 degrees, 10 knots. There's our Beluga hangar there. The door is open, so that's good. Now, you don't actually taxi into the Beluga hangars. I guess there's something about a big, powerful airplane with jet engines and taxiing in, so you don't want to do that. We're actually going to get a tug in here. So APU is available and on. Let's go ahead and hit that bleed switch while we're here. And then here's the taxi zone. And you'll see there's going to be someone that's going to stop us just outside the door. See, we could also, as we're getting a little closer, we're going to do the TARA. We'll just turn that off. And we still do need to turn off some traffic there. Now we're going to go around here. There we go. There's our line right into the Beluga barn. And my throttles are at idle. I really don't want to do too much more with the throttles at this point. And there we go there. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just turn off continuous relight at the moment because that was bugging me. But at this point, the pilots really are going to be concentrating on taxiing. And we've got a person right there. Okay, we're stopped there. That's good. Parking brakes are going to go on. And I know my APU is already set so we can do engines. See, I should have done my strobes off the runway, so we're going to pop those off. We're also going to turn off the nose light. My beacon remains on, though. We're on the APU at the moment, so that's a good thing. Let's also just quickly go down here, hit the ATC button, and we're going to go traffic off. Let's also turn off the weather radar, just because we don't want to cook anybody on the ground with any of our radars or anything. And now we can go over here and let's go to the EFB. We're going to go to ground ops. Let's go to ground services, pushback, and let's do a pre-plan. And in this case, we're going to just push ourselves straight forward. And we're going to push ourselves straight forward like that. And we're going to stop and put our nose right about there. And let's go like that.
Ground to cockpit. Plan acknowledged. Call me through the menu when you're ready.
Okay, I think we're ready. So let's see. Now let's go ahead and hit start.
Ground to cockpit. Tow is driving up.
Okay, so we've got that there. That's good. Some other things we can do to clean up the cockpit here, I think. The APU is running. TCAS is standby. Parking brake is on. We'll look over here. I don't think the brakes are too hot, so we don't have to do the brake fan. There, let's see, we could have somebody wanting to come in and bring us some stuff. So we could go to exits, and we could open the service hatch. That's the little thing in the bottom of the airplane. So we could look and see. Up, that's going in there, so somebody might want to bring us some coffee or something. That would be nice. So the little hatch is good under there. It sits off the ground, so it's not like we're going to drag it back and forth or anything, so that's good. And we're waiting for the tug to connect. Let's see, what do we got over here? We've got a caution.
Okay, all doors and hatches are closed, ready to connect.
Okay, they can go ahead and connect. Our parking brakes remain on. My beacon is on. This airplane could still move. I've got my nav lights on. See, we could probably go ahead and let's turn off the probe heat, and we'll also do the window heat at the moment too. That's probably, we don't need to be keeping those things turned on. And we could also, while this is going here, we could go over here and just look at checklists. After landing, slats and flaps, transponder, weather radar, spoilers, APU. Parking, the bleed is set, engines are off, AP. Let's see, differential pressurization. I've never had that pop up. Lights and signs, fuel pumps could go off soon too. We can go ahead and release the parking brake. I haven't actually had to push that button before.
Starting tow, and you may start engines.
Okay, we're not going to start our engines, obviously, but they're going to tow us into place here. So let's go outside the airplane. And now it's going to tow us into place. That guy's going to disappear. And so here we go. And this is just like the Beluga barn over in up at Hardin. So it's just like that. And they'll center us up a bit. And hopefully I didn't go too far. I went just a little bit too far. You can see my engine is kind of coming through. Is coming through the scenery just a little bit. So I went a little bit too far. You need to be not that far out. Okay, so while they're disconnecting the tow, we can go over here to the EFB and go back to ground ops. Let's go to ground services. I'm going to put chocks in place. Let's get an external power truck. We'll go to the loader, and we're going to request the loader. And so here comes a blank loader. That's coming in. Everything else is pretty cool. We've got chocks in place. Let's go ahead and turn off the beacon. We're not going to move the airplane anymore, but there's still somebody in the cockpit pushing buttons, so I'm going to leave the nav lights on. We could also turn off all those fuel pumps. We have the APU up and running, but we don't need a fuel pump for that. The APU has its own, but we are going to punch in external power. That'll save a little bit of wear and tear on the APU.
Cell is disconnected. A bypass pin has been removed. Hand signal on the left. We'll see you next time and have a safe flight.
Okay, so that's all good to go. This thing is clear and everything is off. We have chocks in place. I'm going to release the parking brake. This thing is going to slowly start making its way up. So if we go outside here and come back in, you can see this thing is slowly making its way. There goes our pushback truck. So there's the pushback truck disappearing. And if we wanted to, we could go over here to plugins. We could go to SAM, airport operations, and we could close the ST doors. And so the ST doors are going to close, and we're going to unload the wings. And there you go. So like I said at the beginning, this is a very complete sim. I mean, you're unloading actual cargoes that this airplane is going to plane is going to fly. Oh, one last thing. Let's have a quick look over here. Let's see. Fuel. What do we got for fuel? I think our fuel is just perfect. I think our fuel was right where we wanted it to be. Yes, our fuel was good. We were we were at 9.9? No, 10.2. So I think we had the right amount of fuel. My math is a little fuzzy, but I think we did good on fuel too. So successful flight, and that is the Beluga. If you've got questions, as I was saying earlier, put your questions in comments. I will answer them. Again, this is just what works for me. It's not the right way versus the wrong way. This is the AnyBuilds Beluga A300 ST. It is absolutely a fabulous airplane. So if you get a chance, if this is if you're looking for a fun payware adventure, I definitely suggest this one for sure. It's one that, you get to see all sorts of cool things that normally you don't get to see. If you'd like, we certainly hope that you'll join me over on the Spy Flight on Twitch. That's Twitch TV/757spy. We fly every day at 1900 Zulu, except usually Mondays. And that's 3 o'clock Eastern time in the United States. Let's see, the YouTube videos are not monetized or anything, so if you liked what you saw, come on over to Twitch and hang out with us. And if you really liked what you saw, come on over, and you can also be a sub or something like that if you'd like to say thank you. And at the bottom there it says spy novels. I'll tell you about that. Yeah, I wrote a few of those if you're interested in a spy story. In the meantime, there is our Beluga. It is about ready to unload. Thank you very much for flying along with me. I hope you found this video helpful, and I hope you have all sorts of fun whale in the skies adventures. Thanks again for watching, and take care.